Hi everyone, welcome to Eve Math Tutoring. Today's lesson is on Introduction to Algebraic Expressions. So first thing we're going to talk about is what is a mathematical expression. So a mathematical expression is a grouping of mathematical symbols and what you will see in there is you may have signs of operation, numbers, and letters. Okay, so some examples of mathematical expressions are the following. So here are some examples. So if you have x squared minus 2x plus 3, that's a mathematical expression. Or you could have 4 sine 3x, or 5 log of x plus e to the 2x. So those are all mathematical expressions. Now, algebraic expressions in algebraic expressions, you'll see that they only contain algebraic symbols and operations. So things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, roots, and powers. So an example of an algebraic expression could be this one here. This one's actually an algebraic. Okay, and all other expressions are called transcendental. Transcendental, sorry about that. So examples B and C. So algebraic expressions only contain algebraic symbols and operations, and all other, so addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, roots, and powers. So let's just put that down here. So you'd have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and roots and powers. Okay. So like example 1a, sorry, I meant example A, and all other expressions are called transcendental. Okay, so let's continue now. Okay, now when two expressions are set equal to each other, we get an equation. So an equation happens when two expressions are set equal to each other. Okay, so some examples of equations are the following. So you could have 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0, or 6x minus 4 equals x plus 1, or y equals 3x minus 5, or 3 sine x equals 2 cos x. These are all equations. So when you have two expressions set equal to each other, you have an equation. Okay. Now, in equations, you'll find constants. So what is a constant? So a constant is a quantity that does not change in value in a particular problem. So some examples of constants could be like 8 or 4 or 5.67 or pi. So pretty much any number really. So it's a number, and it's usually a number. Okay, and it doesn't change in value. Now, when you have a variable in an equation, a variable is a quantity that may change. In a particular, a quantity that may change in value in a question. Okay, so some examples, and usually variables are usually represented by letters in the alphabet. So usually a variable is represented by letter in the alphabet. So some examples of variables could be x, y, z, etc. And you'll see that in algebra. Okay, so these are variables. This means that they may change in quantity. Okay. So if you have the following expression, 3x squared plus 4x plus 5, then in this expression, 3, 4, and 5 are all constants. And the variable in this expression is just x, not x squared, just x. Okay, so that's the variable. Now, sometimes in mathematics, constants will also be represented using a letter. Okay, so sometimes, constants can also be represented So sometimes you'll have, for example, something like ax squared plus bx plus c, where x represents a variable, however a, b, and c will represent constants. And when you have an expression in which the constants are represented by letters, that is called a literal expression. So in a literal expression, the constants are represented by letters. Okay. Now when you have an expression, so you have the expression 4x plus 3x plus 5. Now in this expression, 4x squared is the first term in the expression, 3x is the second term, and 5 is the third term in the expression. So when you have terms, when you want to figure out the terms of an expression, you're always going to list them from highest exponent, like the variables that have high exponents will come first, moving to the least, and then finally over here we've got x to the 0, which is just 1, or so we just have a number. So if I had an expression where I had it written in the following way, what I would do is I would actually rearrange it, and I would write it as x3 plus x squared plus x plus 3. And the reason for that is I want the highest powered variable in the front of the expression, and then this would actually be the first term, this would be the second term, this would be the third term in this expression, and this would be the fourth term. Okay, so that's something important to remember as well. Now, if you're given something where you've got x plus 2x squared plus 3 minus 2x plus 2, in this case, because of these bracket groupings, this here is your first term, and this is your second term. That's because of the brackets. They group them together. Okay. If you have a divisor of a term, that's called a factor of that term. So a divisor of a term is a factor of that term. Divisor is something that divides something. Okay? So for example, if you have the expression, if you have 3a 3axy, then the factors of, or divisors of this would be 3a, x, and y. So those all divide 3xy. 3 goes into this, a divides it, x divides it, and y divides it. Okay, so these are all called factors of 3axy. Now the coefficient part of a term is the constant part of that term. So for 3a xy squared, the coefficient of this term would be 3a if a were a constant. We're assuming a is constant. Okay, and assuming that x, and y squared are variables. So if we were given the expression w over 2 plus x minus y minus 3z, then the coefficient of w over 2 is actually 1 over 2, because w over 2 is like 1/2 times w. It's just written with the w on top. And over here, there's always a 1 beneath everything in math, right? So over here, it's just w times 1, so that's just w over 2. The coefficient of x would be 1. The coefficient of y is -1. There's a -1 in front of it. And then the coefficient of -3z is -3. Okay. Now, if we want to find the degree of a term, then that refers to the integer power to which the variable rate is raised. So if I have 2x, this is a first degree term. So the degree of this term is just 1. If we have 3x squared, the degree of that term is 2. This is a second degree term. Finally, if we have 5y9, that's a 9th degree term. So the degree of that term is 9. So we just look at the power of the variable to figure out the degree. Now in this case, there's nothing written here, but we know that if there's nothing written, there's actually a 1. Okay? So this here is a 9th degree term. And the final thing I want to cover is multinomial. The multinomial is an algebraic expression It's an algebraic expression having more than one term. Algebraic expression having more than one term. Okay? So an example of some multinomials are 3x plus 5, 3x cubed minus 3x squared plus 7. It's just any algebraic expression having more than one term. Okay? Okay, so that's introduction to algebraic expressions. We will be covering multinomials and polynomials and etc. in more in another video. I'm going to be covering that in more detail. So I hope that it helped you understand just the basic intro to what the words mean when you see these words in mathematics. Okay?